2023 has been a very turbulent year for animation, whether it's because of the strikes or because of the looming threat of AI. Regardless, there have been many amazing animated shows and movies, and in this video, we'll be looking at the best of the best. Unlike in years prior, where I ranked cartoons, I'll just be highlighting the shows and movies that made this year great. I don't know. I don't have any energy to be a hater, and I enjoy talking about things I do like instead of constantly ranting about things I don't like. Unlike some YouTubers. Anyways, on with the show. Vinland Saga Season 2. The critically acclaimed Viking anime comes back and switches its setting to, a farm? For those of you who haven't seen the show, the main character, Thorfinn, was exiled for attempting to kill Prince Kanyu and was enslaved on the farm as a punishment. Despite its low-stakes setting and mundane plots, the second season of Vinland Saga is actually my favorite. Not just because it is animated by the greatest of all time, Mappa, but because of its heavy focus on philosophy and atonement for one's actions. You get to see Thorfinn evolve from a bloodthirsty warrior to a humble pacifist who says he has no enemies.
俺に敵なんかいない。
Work It Out Wombats, one of the few PBS Kid shows in a long time where I am actively keeping up with every episode. I mean, Rosie's Rules, Almost Way, Don Quixote, these shows are all pretty okay, but not something I will watch every day. But Work It Out Wombats is something special, and as of this writing, I've seen every episode. I can't pinpoint what exactly it is that makes it stand out compared to the others. Maybe it's the animation and how they use curvilinear perspective to make the characters stand out against the backdrops, how each character has a complicated ranking system and walk cycle, and how they all look fuzzy and really welcoming. Or maybe it's the characters themselves and how they have really vivid personalities. Yeah, it's a super sugary and colorful show, but the characters are not all nicey nice all the time. Sometimes they get into arguments with each other in a way that feels real, and the show doesn't just focus on the Wombat characters. All the other characters get focused too, which makes the world immersive. Heck, one of the most recent episodes as of this writing, Cheaperhood Piranha, revolves entirely around Sammy the Snake and Lisa the Tarsier, neither of whom are wombats. Also, we stand Mr. E in this house.
She's got a point. She's an icon. She's a legend. And she is the moment. Now, come on now.
Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. Dare I say it, one of the best Marvel cartoons ever? Yes, this is based on a Marvel comic. What I like the most about the series is the animation provided by Flying Bark, who also blessed us with the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Lego Monkey Kid. It has a very distinctive look, and it combines a general comic book aesthetic with a few anime tropes. Another thing that makes the series stand out is its use of music, usually licensed music during fight scenes. It's used really well, and the disco remix of the theme song during the season 1 finale is just perfect. Combine that with the lovable characters and their dynamics, from the super genius Linoa, her supportive and quirky family, to her best friend slash sidekick Casey and Devil Dinosaur, to the Tumblr Sexy Man the Beyonder, and you've got one of the best cartoons of the 2020s. Kif. A highly distinct entry in the modern Disney television animation lineup, mostly because of it being entirely about animals instead of humans, and being a lighthearted comedy as opposed to being dark and having deepest lore. It pretty much consists of two friends shooting the shit together and going wherever life takes them. It's like a toned-down version of a regular show, but still just as engaging, and filled with friendship moments that feel genuine. The thing I like the most about the show is its setting, which is based off Cape Town in South Africa. Heck, Kif's name is actually South African slang for cool. I also like that they have a fake sponsor at the beginning of every episode.
Brought to you by Dooley's Feather Barn. If it's stinky, it's a Dooley's.
The Ghost and Molly McGee Season 2. The second season of the Disney animated series is even better than the first, greatly expanding on the setting, developing the characters further, and introducing several new ones, most notably the Chen family, who provide conflict in this series because they are ghost hunters. And eventually, Molly convinces Ollie and later June that ghosts are not bad. As a side note, Molly and Ollie's relationship is cute, I don't care what anyone says. We also got a glimpse into Scratch's past, as he had a friend named Adia who moved away. The Super Mario Bros. Movie. This movie had every reason to suck. First off, it's a video game movie, and we all know how bad video game movies are. Also, it's made by Illumination, who, let's just say, aren't the most well-received animation studio. But man, did they go above and beyond. It's so jam-packed with references and in-jokes to the game, and even the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. yet manages to avoid feeling like 92 minutes of references, as it has a solid storyline and memorable characters. The voice acting is also pretty decent. Chris Pratt's performance as Mario actually wasn't too bad because he went for a Brooklyn accent similar to what Captain Lou Albano gave him in the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Don't forget about Jack Black's performance as Bowser. It's probably the best celebrity they could have gotten to voice him.
Peaches, 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 peaches.
Unicorn Warriors Eternal. This show is a complete trip, let me tell you, which makes it a highly distinct entry in Genndy Tartakovsky's filmography. Get this, it takes place in 19th century England, features a girl who gets possessed by the spirit of a black-haired woman and has a sordid romance with a guy with long white hair, and also there's a monk. Wait a minute, this show is a ripoff of Inuyasha! Nah, just kidding. The show does take inspiration from anime, but the really old stuff like the works of Osamu Tezuka, and also Western stuff like the art style of Fleischer, for example, Popeye and Betty Boop. It's such an odd show, but it also has an engaging, adventurous story and well-rounded characters. One thing I also like, along with my adventures with Superman, which I'll get to in a bit, is how it blurs the lines between kid animation and adult animation. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the long-awaited sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, and man is it good. Actually good or even great are understatements. There are not enough words in any language to describe how immaculate this movie is, and that's saying something considering that the first movie was already insanely excellent. This is one example of a sequel that's even better than the already great first movie. The animation has improved quite a bit, which is a difficult task considering the high bar that the first movie set. This movie expands on the multiple different Spider universes and all the members of Spider Society, all of whom are memorable and compelling in their own right. This movie also examines responsibility and fate within the context of Spider Society and canon events. Much of the movie's conflict is derived from whether Miles should let his father die or not, since every Spider person had to lose a loved one on the way to becoming a hero, and Miles clashes with the movie's anti-hero Miguel O'Hara over this. And the ending is not happy, but that's just because it ended on a cliffhanger. And with the way that the Spider-Verse animators are being treated, I wouldn't mind waiting 10 years for a sequel just as long as they are treated properly. My Adventures with Superman. One of the best Superman media in a long time. Seriously, I'm sick of all the edgy and dark interpretations of Superman. Bruh, what if Superman was evil? Shut up. This show is great specifically because it takes a more lighthearted approach to the Man of Tomorrow, and very much feels like a shoujo anime. Of course, there's still a lot of action and whatnot, but a lot of focus is put on the romance between Clark and tomboy Lois. Plus, Superman is pretty much a magical girl now. We need more positive and sincere shows like this. Elemental. Let me tell you, I never understood the hate for this movie, but thankfully it was vindicated. The marketing really did it dirty. In this movie, Pixar treads into rom-com territory, featuring a story about the relationship between a waterman and a firewoman, while also using the personifications of the different elements to discuss racism. The director of this movie, Peter Sohn, based this movie on his experience as a child of immigrant parents, and how said parents reacted to him being in an interracial relationship. Does it borrow heavily from other movies? Yes. Is it super cheesy? Yes. But goddamn if it isn't good. Nimona. After Blue Sky shut down, the state of their feature film, Nimona, based on the graphic novel series by N.D. Stevenson, was put in jeopardy. Luckily, it was saved by Netflix and finally completed, and it is glorious. It's like those 2000s fairy tale parody movies, but less cynical, and instead of poking fun at a specific fairy tale, it pokes fun at fairy tale tropes in general, and it is much more LGBTQ plus positive. Since Ballister and Ambrosius are gay and a couple, and Nimona's shapeshifting and her being treated like a monster can also be read as a metaphor for being gender fluid. It's chaotic, full of heart, and the animation is beautiful. Long live painted CGI. Blue Sky, you will never be forgotten. Projecto Space Camp. Oh come on, you all knew this one was coming. Unfortunately, I can't really show any footage because Universal is extremely copyright strike happy. Probably even more so than Disney, Paramount, and Warner at this point. I already have a review about it on my channel, so check that one out. To make a long story short, I am so glad that Vertigo came back one last time, and 4 years of agony really paid off in the end. I think everyone should watch this, but you have to watch the Ready to Go series first to understand it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Painted CGI strikes again, and this time it's come for the latest generation of TMNT. I must say, it works really well. It gives it a school sketchbook kind of look. It might be too early to say it since the TV series hasn't come out yet, but I think this might be my favorite incarnation of TMNT yet. And that's because the turtles actually act like teenagers for a change. They like K-pop, they watch anime, roast each other, and say the word Riz. It helps that they're voiced by real-life teenagers. Nicholas Cantu is 20, but it's close enough. In fact, in spite of the great animation over-the-top action, I think the strongest part of the movie is the characters. I already mentioned how I like the turtles actually act their age, but I also like Splinter's story, how he's characterized as someone who is hurt by society and doesn't want his sons to endure the same fate. Plus, Superfly based the villain. Fiona and Cake, the Adventure Time sequel / spin-off series. You know, I thought this was just going to be a show about the gender-flipped versions of the characters, but it's so much more than that, since it revolves around the multiverse and the characters visiting different universes in every episode. Plus, it turns out that Fiona and Cake weren't just made up by Simon, but actually real. I know we're getting fatigued about so many shows and movies incorporating a multiverse into their narratives, but Adventure Time already established different universes in previous episodes, so I don't mind. I mean, sure, I loved seeing Fiona and Cake in action, as well as Marshall Lee and Prince Gumball, Gary Prince. But for me, the best part of the show was seeing Simon and Betty's relationship. It's so sweet and so tragic and genuinely interesting to follow because of Betty's codependency and how she sacrificed everything just to be with Simon. I may not show it 100%, but I haven't been this obsessed with a cartoon pairing in ages. Friedman, Beyond Journey's End. I wasn't really interested in the show at first. I saw that it had a high rating on AniList, and I thought, this show must be overrated like Oshi no Ko. I'm sorry, but Oshi no Ko had a great first episode, and then it gets boring. But back to Friedman. Eventually, I decided to watch it, and after watching it, it does deserve all the hype. It starts out as a typical medieval type story with mages and elves and stuff. And the story is about an elf named Friedman dealing with the loss of her party members after they completed their journey, while also making new friends. There is plenty of drama, but it is also very relaxed, calming, but still interesting to follow and entertaining. I promise you, after watching just one episode, you'll be hooked. And if there's any anime deserving of the best anime 2023 title besides Vinland Saga Season 2, it's Friedman. The Amazing Digital Circus. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't interested in this show at first due to it being tangentially related to Super Mario Glitchy 4. I'm sorry, but I don't want anything to do with Super Mario Glitchy 4 because of the fanbase being extremely immature. Then I realized that besides sharing an animation studio, they have nothing in common. And just because it has a connection to Super Mario Glitchy 4 doesn't mean it's bad. So I checked it out, and I am glad I did. This show has to be one of the best in indie animation. This and Lackadaisy. They show just how far it has come. I would have given Lackadaisy its own section, but I have more to say about the Amazing Digital Circus, so Lackadaisy will remain an honorable mention. Anyways, Digital Circus has animation so vibrant, so expressive, so colorful, that it can generally rival major animation studios like Pixar. And the intro alone is a great demonstration of this. Not only that, but it excels at capturing the aesthetic of 90s computer games. The series is simultaneously silly and colorful while also having a mystery to it, since some of the characters in the Digital Circus can remember their identities before they ended up there. It's basically existential horror that looks like Toontown. Kinda. Also, I have to give props to the character of Jax. He's basically an industry plant because he was purposely designed to fit typical Tumblr sexy man tropes, and he eventually did become a legit Tumblr sexy man. I bet his parents have pages on Wikipedia. Blue Eye Samurai. I finally got around to watching this, and it absolutely does deserve all the hype. First off, the animation. It was made to look like it was hand-painted, and it excels at pulling off that look. The character designs were also based off Boonruck puppets. It looks gorgeous, and the animation is especially great during the fight scenes, which were carefully choreographed. This is what adult animation should strive to be like. For one thing, it actually looks good, and the story is legitimately interesting as well, since it takes place in Edo period Japan and follows a biracial samurai who is disguising herself as a man, hence why she's called the Blue Eye Samurai. I also liked how the series is astonishingly casual about sex and nudity. There are a few scenes featuring nudity and prostitutes, but given the time period, it doesn't feel unnecessary at all, which is more than I can say for other adult animated shows. If you liked Arcane, you should definitely watch this show. They're not made by the same studio, though they were both made in France, but the animation and pacing is somewhat similar, so you will like it. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I love Scott Pilgrim. I haven't read the comics or played the video game, but the 2010 movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is one of my favorite movies ever because of its inventive premise, beautiful video game-inspired visuals, and engaging characters. The news that Scott Pilgrim will be getting an anime adaptation had me stoked, and yes, as much as my anime list wants to deny it, it is an anime, and this is why AniList is better. The premise is the same as always. Scott Pilgrim is a complete loser who, one day, meets a mysterious girl named Ramona Flowers, and in order to date her, has to defeat her 7 evil exes in video game-style battles. But what makes Scott Pilgrim Takes Off stand out is that it expands on all the other characters besides Scott, especially Ramona. In the second episode, Scott is killed by the first evil ex, Matthew Patel, and the rest of the series is about Scott's associates producing a movie about him. With Scott out of the picture, this gives Ramona more time to grow as a person, more time to confront her exes herself, and I especially love how they gave more development to the exes. They made Gideon Graves, aka Gordon Goose, into a pathetic baby girl. They made Todd Ingram obsessed with Wallace, and they actually took Ramona's relationship with Roxy seriously, instead of dismissing it as a phase. And it's not just the exes, but Knives Chow as well. Scott really didn't treat her well, and his death allowed Knives to get the happy ending she deserved. I don't know, she really got screwed over in the movie. And don't worry, Scott eventually does come back. Leo. I didn't want to watch this at first because it seemed like just another generic kids movie, and in some ways it is. The celebrity voice cast, the cliches like the talkative nerd, the kid with overprotective parents, the spoiled rich girl, the evil substitute teacher, but then I saw they got great reviews, with many proclaiming it to be a masterpiece in peak fiction. Well, the reviews on Letterboxd are different, but that's just because they hate any film that isn't deep and artsy. Also, it was a huge hit for Netflix in the same way that Squid Game was, so I decided to check it out. And it is indeed quite good. I mean, yes, it's cliche, but cliches aren't inherently bad, it's how you use them that matters. For example, Leo, the main character and the class pet, spends time with each of the kids and encourages them to basically break away from their assigned rules. For example, he encourages Summer to listen to others instead of talking over them, Eli to let go of his drone, and for Jada to acknowledge that her parents aren't really that great. You know what this movie reminds me of? Assassination Classroom. I mean, think about it. In Assassination Classroom, Class 3E has to kill Koro-sensei, and before they do, Koro-sensei motivates them to be better students. In the same way, Leo doesn't have a lot of time left on this earth. At least that's what he thinks at first. But he makes the most of it by giving out helpful advice to the kids and being their friend. I'll take this over 8 crazy nights. Hilda Season 3. The third and final season of Hilda, one of the best animated shows to come from Netflix. It's always sad to say goodbye to a favorite series, but at least it had a good run, plenty of merchandise, and a feature film. The third season of Hilda is the best yet, featuring a time skip where Hilda and her friends are a little older, and taking on more emotional and action-oriented plot lines, while not becoming too edgy or losing the special comfy Hilda magic. The season adds more mythical creatures, of course, while also expanding on Hilda's family and her deadbeat dad in particular. I don't want to give too much away, so it's best if you watch for yourself. The Boy and the Heron. I just want to say that the movie's Japanese title, which translates to How Do You Live, is a much better title because it's thematically relevant, and I wish they didn't change it. Anyway, this is yet another masterpiece produced by Hayao Miyazaki, after coming out of retirement for the 69th time. To see it absolutely dominate the box office makes me so happy. It has to be one of Ghibli's most imaginative movies yet, with all of its strange creatures that manage to be both ugly and beautifully animated at the same time. It uses all of the odd imagery to tell us a story about coming of age, grief, the inevitability of death, and acceptance. I also have to give huge props to the voice cast in the dub. A lot of animated movies get flagged for their celebrity voice cast. And while Ghibli movies do have celebrity voice actors, they're actually well casted, as is the case with this movie. I mean, Robert Pattinson is the voice of the heron, and yet he uses such a distinct voice that you can't even tell it's him. What makes this even better is that it's his first voice acting role ever. Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget, a sequel to the iconic anti-fascist political thriller Chicken Run, 23 years in the making. You know, Aardman really often gets the short end of the stick, so I always want to support them, as well as Laika, as they're practically keeping stop-motion movies alive. Like how the first movie was a parody of The Great Escape and other such prisoners of war movies, Dawn of the Nugget seems to be a parody of 60s spy movies in the vein of Mission Impossible. It did remind me a little of those direct-to-DVD Disney sequels a little, but it was still a fun watch, and we love to see Hilda's chicken Sona and Mrs. Tweety, who was somehow still alive, serving country. Now that we're through with the highlights, let's take a look at some honorable mentions. Shows and movies that I didn't get to watch but are probably good, and shows and movies that I did watch, didn't like, but I don't have a lot to say about. Buddy Daddies. It's like Spy Family, but gay. Okay, so they're not actually a couple, and they're assassins, not spies, but Buddy Daddies is still good, wholesome, and quite emotional in some places. And now on to Spy Family itself, specifically Spy Family Season 2. It's not bad by any means, and it's still enjoyable most of the time, but I didn't enjoy it as much as Season 1, but I still tune in every week just for the awesome opening and ending sequences though. Another anime with a Season 2, Jujutsu Kaisen. The Gojo flashback arc was great. The Shibuya incident arc was also great up to a point. The season was really plagued by animation issues because of the animators at MAPPA being abused. And with that knowledge, it's hard to watch something like this, or Chainsaw Man, or Season 2 of Vinland Saga without feeling bad. My Dad the Bounty Hunter. It has an interesting story and great character interactions, but I haven't gotten around to watching Season 2 yet. Super Team 4, pretty entertaining magical girl show that also uses paint and CGI for the animation, but again, I haven't seen Season 2 yet. Captain Laserhawk, a Blood Dragon remix. I haven't watched this because it's based on Far Cry, and I never played Far Cry, even though I don't play Cyberpunk 2077 and I enjoyed Cyberpunk Edge Runners. And though I won't touch League of Legends with a 10-foot pole, I loved Arcane. It's probably a good show though. Also, Rayman is in there and he's evil for some reason. Jessica's Big Little World. I had no idea this show came out. I knew it existed, but I thought it got scrapped entirely. And it is gonna end after 20 episodes because Warner Brothers Discovery doesn't want to do Cartoonito anymore. I mean, it's probably a cute show. And this is a segue to Craig Before the Creek. Maybe the real creek was the friends we made along the way. Frog and Toad. What can I say? It's a super cute adaptation of the classic books, and the ending theme is a banger. Wish. I already said my thoughts on the movie in my Disney ranking video, and it's included here so I can say that I keep getting videos in my recommended about how Wish is the worst thing ever, and how it was supposedly made with AI. This movie wasn't made with AI. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it was AI generated. I'm sick of all of these videos purposely spreading misinformation over the internet. That and all of the Digital Circus / Leo and even Trolls fans praising their favorite works just dunk on Wish. Hey, did you know it's possible to praise something without dunking on something else?
I get it!
And speaking of Trolls, Band Together is probably the best Trolls movie yet. I actually saw this movie twice, and it's definitely a movie you have to watch in theaters. I'm glad that it's getting positive attention, even if it's only because of Velvet and Veneer. Bossy Bear. I didn't want to watch this at first, but then Ready to Go Space Camp came out, and I found out that Stella Singularity has the same voice actress as Bissy, Bossy Bear's older sister. I checked out a couple episodes, and it was quite enjoyable and cleverly written. It sometimes felt like a regular Nickelodeon show rather than a Nick Jr. show. Invincible Season 2. It's an honorable mention instead of being a highlight because the season isn't complete yet, and it's currently in hiatus, but I really like the season so far. And please stop whining about the hiatus. It's literally just 1 month. You'll live. And that is it for this video. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone. Let's look forward to next year and all of the shows and movies that it has to offer.